Hello, and welcome to my video series on gaining ELO. This is going to be extended over 9 videos teaching you the ins and outs of League of Legends and everything you'll need to know to improve. After the 9 instructional videos, I'll be making more with in-depth explanations of how each ELO bracket or tier, being between bronze to diamond, differ in relation to what the players in this skill level know in comparison to the information I'll be providing in these videos. Today, we'll be going over map pressure. Map pressure is one of the more complicated concepts in League of Legends. Because of this, I'm going to do my best not only to explain exactly what it is, but the best places to create pressure and also being able to intuitively figure out where pressure is and will be by yourself so you can adjust to anything. So, in this video, we'll be going over short-term versus long-term pressure, understanding towers, rotations around the map, dragon and baron control using pressure, and also split pushing. So, what is pressure? Pressure is force against the enemy team. It's making the enemy team play reactively and how you want them to. Basically making them do something they weren't prepared for or didn't want to. Pressure is what is used to control the flow of the game, and whoever has the most pressure will win the game. So, let's hop into our first topic. This will be short-term pressure. So, short-term pressure is pressure that will only last a few minutes. Examples are having a buff or killing a member on the enemy team. In the example as I show, you can see that when blue team kills a red team member, there's a 5v4 with 2 players versus 1 in the mid lane. Mid tower can surely fall and oftentimes will. Think of short-term pressure as a window that you open and slowly closes itself over time. During this window is your opportunity to create long-term pressure. Long-term pressure is pressure that will never go away. Long-term pressure is formed when a tower is dropped or an inhibitor is open. This is because 2 things are now forever a disadvantage to the enemy team. Towers can never be rebuilt, and an inhibitor left open can easily be taken with swift movements and cause super creeps to spawn, causing even more pressure on that lane. So now that you have a quick understanding of what short-term and long-term pressure are, we can go into the extra things that cause them. Short-term pressure can be caused by having a buff. If one mid laner has a blue buff and the other one doesn't, it's going to cause pressure because they have all of that mana regeneration and cooldown in order to help take care of their lane. There's also kills. Kills means that there's a disadvantage in the amount of players on one team. As you saw in the example, when a 5v4 happened, mid tower went down because there wasn't a suffice amount of team presence in that lane, and they were able to shove it down. The last thing for short-term pressure is constantly shoving your creep wave into the tower. This is because it's going to cause your enemy laners to miss CS, and it's also going to mean that the jungler has to come down, stop jungling, and assist their lane, meaning that he's going to waste time as long as you've been warding properly, which I showed you how to do in my first video, and get away safely. So now let's go over some long-term pressure. The 3 things are tower kills, inhib kills, and slow pushing, and I'll explain that one in a second. So for long-term pressure, you have tower kills. Now tower kills are super important because these are never going to respawn. Once you kill a tower, you then can control that area of the map safely without worrying about the tower being there. Your creeps can also automatically walk past that area. Next is inhibitor kills. Inhibitor kills are super important because then you're spawning super creeps, and these creeps can take down towers as well. So when you kill an inhibitor, those creeps are going to be shoving that lane in which you took the inhibitor for you, and you will no longer need one of your teammates to go there for that to happen. Super creeps often take Nexus towers when the enemy team is tied up with your own team, and this is one of the easiest ways to win the game without having to kill the enemy team, is to just distract them while your super creeps do all the work. Now, the last example is slow pushing. Now, this one isn't as much as tower kills or inhibitors, but this is a type of split pushing. So slow pushing is when you barely last hit a creep wave, and what it does is it builds up your creep wave to a huge number, maybe 2 to 3 waves, and then you leave that lane, and slowly but surely your wave is going to push up that lane by itself while you're not there. This is going to act as a sort of super creep, and it's not going to be as strong, but it will definitely cause the enemy team to have to respond quickly, or they're going to lose at least a tower. So there you go, some short-term versus long-term pressure examples. Now there's some other things, but I'll be covering those in another video. This is more so based on team comps, being early game versus late game, and the way gold income works. But for now, I'm just going to keep it to these few topics, and next we're going to be going into understanding towers. Now we'll try to understand towers. In this example, I'm going to show what happens when blue team takes all three of the outer towers from red team, starting from top to mid to bottom. You'll notice some things in each example, and these are relevant no matter which tower you take first, although maybe not as strong. You'll see that even though top tower gets taken, mid and bottom are going to be affected, and that happens for anyone. If bottom tower gets taken, mid and top are affected. So we're going to go into why this happens. So first we're going to show that blue and red both have all three towers up, but watch what happens when red tower loses top. As top tower falls, you can see that the pressure applied is not to top lane, but also to mid and to bottom. This is because now that top lane is dead, it opens the opportunity for blue team's top laner to roam towards mid, and if top can roam towards mid, mid can roam towards bottom. So this means that it applies pressure to everyone. Now, it also means that blue team now controls Dragon Pit. And with Dragon Pit under control from blue team, it opens up the possibility for them to take it, which I'll go over later when we discuss Dragon. Now, as you watch, mid tower falls. Once mid tower falls, all of red side's top jungle, where their red spawns, is now mostly under blue control. This is because with top and mid pushed back, they can easily roam through there. Now, something you'll also want to notice is that while blue may not have red's bottom tower down, they still have control over it. Now, why is this? Well, this is because with top and mid being down, red tower and the bottom side is the only outer tower left, meaning that the tower itself is in a sense overextending. Now that blue doesn't have to worry about top and mid, they can focus their efforts on picking up bottom tower, which leaves bottom's AD carry and support in a lot of danger. Once bottom tower finally goes down, cycle repeats. Notice how red's control or zone of control is again from tower to tower. This is because the same row, which is the tier 2 towers, are all still up. Now that we have a better understanding of towers and how they work to create pressure on the map, we're going to be going over rotating. Rotating means moving around the map. The team with better rotations will be able to apply more pressure and more consistently. You'll also be able to stop your towers from going down. So in this rotation example, we're going to show how you can save your towers. Now, for this picture, blue is pressuring top and red is pressuring mid. Now, because red is pressuring so hard, it's going to force the blue team's mid laner to go back to base. With mid lane and base, red is going to be able to apply some damage to blue team's tower. Because of how important mid tower is, top is going to take the time to come down and defend it. So this means that a top is going to rotate in order for mid tower to not take any damage. Now, because top lane isn't going to have a member of blue team there anymore, mid is going to want to rotate up towards that lane. That way, by the time the top laner on red team gets to the tower, they're both secured by a blue team player. Now, in that example, we showed how to rotate to protect your towers, but rotating can also be used aggressively. In this next example, top is going to pressure and jungle will help pressure bottom. It's going to result in rotations leading to a free dragon. The first step in causing a rotation that will net you a free dragon is gaining an advantage in one of your lanes. As you can see, blue team's top laner sends red team's top laner back to base. The next step is going to be applying extra pressure somewhere else while also getting your team together. For this example, blue side jungler is going to go bottom lane and help them shove it in. This is going to result in a 3v2 in the bottom lane, causing either the red team's bottom lane to die or be forced back to base. Now that blue team has a significant player advantage on the field, they can go ahead and rotate towards dragon. As you can see, top lane is going to rotate to either mid or all the way to dragon. Mid is going to rotate to dragon, and the bottom lane, who also has a jungler at this time, is also going to rotate to dragon. Because there's no pressure being applied by red anywhere else, they're going to be able to take dragon and make it back to their lanes in order to defend before red has a time to reply. Now let's take a more in-depth look at the differences between what each tower has to offer in terms of rotating to dragon. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the three different scenarios. We're going to look at bottom, mid, and top, and what happens when you take those towers and how you use that to rotate to dragon and pick up some more advantages. So, for each example, we're going to start off in the all towers up position. As you can see, all three of the outer towers for both teams are standing. But watch what happens to the pressure when bottom tower goes down. Because bottom tower goes down, red team loses a lot of map pressure. Notice how blue team now controls all the way up to red team's blue buff, which means that they also control dragon. This means that if the mid laner from blue team rotates, as well as the jungler and the bottom lane from blue, they'll be able to pick up dragon. Now, you won't want to do this when the enemy red team is up, but now that you have the pressure, it should be a lot more easy for you to attempt to. Now, once again, we're in the starting position. I keep showing the starting position and then the tower that gets taken down, so that you better understand exactly where the line of pressure is drawn. For the next example, we're going to be doing top lane. So, let's take a look at what happens when top lane falls. Now that top tower is dead for red team, you can see the kind of pressure that blue is now applying. While they may have more control over the top side of the map, because blue team's top laner is able to roam, it applies more pressure everywhere, like I explained earlier. Because of this pressure everywhere, it still extends blue's pressure past up to the river, or up to the enemy jungle, and dragon is still within their control. This means that if top lane roams down, they can again pick up another dragon. This time, mid, jungle, and bottom are all going to be going, as well as the top laner that's roaming down. Once again, from the starting position. Next, we're going to be going over what happens when mid tower goes down. A quick note I'd like to add is that the same applies for red team, just in the opposite way. So anything that you see blue team doing, if you're on purple team, you can just mirror it, and this guide will still match. So let's go on to what happens when red tower in the mid lane goes down. Once the red team's mid tower has been destroyed, notice how blue team's zone of control is now not limited to just the river. It's limited a little bit further up into the jungle, but it's not all on one side of the jungle. So before, you could see that when bottom tower went down, they had a lot of control over blue side jungle. And when top tower went down, blue had a lot of control of the enemy red side jungle. When mid tower goes down, they have a little bit more control over the river area and things that connect to the river, but not so much the enemy buffs. But even still, with this pressure alone, they still control dragon. And now, mid, jungle, and the bottom lane can rotate to do it. Normally, if mid tower goes down, the top laner for either team is still going to stay top lane, unless they think a team fight is coming. Next up, split pushing. Split pushing is just when one or two people from a team split off to pressure other lanes away from the main group. Now, split pushing can happen in any lane, but I'm going to show you the best examples. Normally, it's either top lane or bottom lane that's being split pushed, because mid lane is so close that it's quicker to be able to get to, and it doesn't apply as much pressure. In this example, we have 4 members from blue team in the mid lane. And we also have 4 members from red team in the mid lane. And then we have 1 member from blue who's further ahead than the enemy top laner. This is causing blue team to have an immense amount of pressure in the top lane. Now, because blue team's top laner is much stronger than red team's top laner, they're losing towers, and red team needs to do something to help. So as you can see, red team is going to send some of the players from mid lane to go assist top lane, or else they're going to lose too much. Because the red team splits up and sends people top lane, now blue has an advantage in mid lane, and they're going to be able to snag a tower and apply some extra pressure in mid lane. I'd like to touch a little bit more on the topic of split pushing before I move on. I'd like everyone to understand that while it's a simple concept of send one person to another lane and have them push, it's not really that simple. So here's a question you should ask yourself before deciding whether or not your team should split push. And those would be, does your team have good disengage? This is because if your team gets caught out in a 4v5 because you have a member split pushing off on the side lane, you're going to need to be able to disengage and get away. Disengages can mean the Talisman of Ascension, which helps you run really quick, having someone like a Sivir, or anyone who can really have that wall or speed you guys up to get away. People like Orianna help as well with her dissonance, Jace with his accelerated gate, just stuff like that, a way to get away from the enemy team. The next question you want to ask yourself is, does your team have a good 1v1 duelist? This means that if you send somebody to another lane, are they going to be able to kill the enemy who is stopping them from pushing down the tower? Or is it just going to be a 1v1 and a 4v4 and the game is going nowhere? If you don't have a good duelist, you should not be split pushing. A good duelist is someone who can 1v1 underneath the tower and get away really quickly. Another question you can ask yourself is, does your team have one tank that can group? In the event that you don't have good enough disengage to get away from a 4v5 fight, do you have that one guy who's going to be beefy enough to absorb all the damage? Maybe he'll die by himself, but hopefully the point is to help at least 3 of your members escape from that 4v5 and be able to live to defend the towers. Because if you all die, you're going to lose more than split pushing would have gotten you. Alright, here's another one. Is your team far enough ahead? This means that even if you have that stronger duelist, what's to stop the enemy team from just running down and tower diving your entire team? What's stopping them? The main thing you want to do when you're split pushing is make sure that you have at least a small enough advantage to where the enemy team can't completely tower dive you in order to win the game. If you're far enough ahead, you can probably split push if you have the right champions. Last but not least, and this is one of the bigger problems in solo queue and one of the easiest ways to throw, is not understanding if the enemy team has too much wave clear. If you're up against a Nasus with a Nocturne jungle and they have a Ziggs mid and a Caitlyn bottom and they've got a Janna, there's no way in hell. Stop trying. There's only 2 ways you're going to get a tower from this team. One is whether or not you can get a kill before sieging, whether this is a pick before you get to the tower or tower diving. And 2 is split pushing. This is the only way to get a tower from a team with too much wave clear. I've seen too many throws of teams who get poked down endlessly trying to force the tower. If they understood how to split push, they could avoid this mistake entirely and end up winning the game that they end up throwing instead. So, who can split push? Now, because the game is always changing, and some champions become weak at certain aspects of the game, like split pushing or team fighting, or so weak in general that you probably don't want to play them, I'm going to try and categorize split pushers in 3 different categories. The first one is going to be a 1v1 duelist with wave clear. Now, 2 champions that instantly come to mind are Zed and Tryndamere. Both these champions can duel well, they both have decent wave clear, and they're both AD, which means they do tons of damage to towers. The next category you're going to be looking at is, do you have a tank who can survive a 2 to 3 man gank? Again, I'm going to give two examples of champions. One is Renekton. He has his dash, so he has the ability to get over walls, and he's extremely tanky, which means he can live a 2 to 3 man gank most of the time, and if not, he'll waste enough of the enemy team's time for his own team to do something somewhere else. Another champion is Singed. Singed is extremely quick and extremely hard to kill, so he can survive a 2 to 3 man gank rather easily, causing a lot of pressure top lane. The last category is going to be someone with significant wave clear and great escape. Now, this one is a little harder to come by, and I can't think of someone off the top of my head, but someone who used to be really good at this was Rengar. He had his W, which did AoE damage, and he normally built a Hydra, so he had significant wave clear, and his Q did extra damage to structures, and he also got an attack speed buff. Now, at the time of this video, Rengar recently got nerfed, and he no longer gets that extra damage and attack speed on towers, but his ultimate is a perfect example of an easy escape. He can use his ultimate and just run away invisible, and you won't be able to see where he goes, leaving him normally pretty safe. Someone else that comes to mind, although isn't played as often, is going to be Shaco. Now, Shaco isn't the greatest 1v1 duelist unless he's really far ahead, but he can push hella fast. And with his Q, which is Deceive, he can go invisible, hop walls, and escape. If you do try and chase him down, he's going to drop some boxes, fear you, and he's going to get away, causing tons of pressure on a split push. So these are the three categories that I think most champions who can split push will fall into. And please remember that just because you're split pushing doesn't mean you're doing it at the right time. Even if you have the best champion to split push with, you have to make sure that the rest of your team's in position. Oftentimes at lower ELOs and even higher ELOs, you'll see that one guy, he's split pushing and 3 people come to kill him. And he says in all chat, "Hey, why aren't you guys doing anything? I just drew 3 people top lane." What these people don't understand is that if the rest of the team isn't in position to take advantage of the split pushing, they're basically intentionally feeding. Now the last 2 topics on our list are going to be inhibitors and Baron. Now these 2 topics are going to coincide, and you'll see in a minute why. But first we're going to start off specifically with the best inhibitors. Now the best inhibitors goes as follows. The inhibitor to take with the highest win rate is going to be bottom inhibitor. Now bottom inhibitor is the strongest inhibitor to take because it's the farthest away from Baron. And I'll go over that in a minute. The second best inhibitor to take is top. And the last inhibitor you want to focus on is the mid inhibitor. So let's take a look at why this is. Now that we can see different lines, look how far away the different inhibitors are from Baron. The reason why the inhibitors correlate directly to Baron is because if you can get bottom inhibitor, which is at the very bottom of the map, if you have super creeps pushing the enemy lane there, they're going to be split so far that you're going to easily have a numbers advantage at Baron. The second best inhibitor to take is top. And now top is more important because check out the blue triangle. Between top and bottom inhibitor is the furthest distance between the inhibitors. This means that if you have super creeps pushing bottom lane and you go top, it's going to be a lot harder for them to defend those 2 lanes than if you have super creeps coming in bottom and you go in mid, because of the small distance between those 2 inhibitors. The last and probably worst inhibitor to get is mid. Now, any inhibitor is good, don't get me wrong, but the reason why mid is hardest is because it's the easiest to defend and it's the hardest to catch off guard because of how close everything else is. People can come from top, people can come from bottom. People can always defend it. So this is why these inhibitors are the best and worst in this order. Now let's go over how to create pressure in later game to try and get Baron. Here you can see that blue team and red team are in a 5v5 against each other. Now watch what happens as blue team sends one member bottom. The yellow line indicates where they're going. So as you can see now, it's a 4v5 mid lane, but one laner is in bottom for blue team, and they're going to start pushing as fast as they can. This is going to cause red team to have to respond. The reason why red team had to respond is because they'd lose pressure in the bottom lane otherwise. Also, let's keep in mind that the split pushing is going to be according to whether or not blue is ahead enough to actually do so. Now we have a 4v4 in mid lane and a 1v1 in bottom lane. However, because the blue team got to bottom lane first, the pressure is on red team to do something. Because the blue team has more pressure in the bottom lane, it's going to force the red team in mid to be a little more careful. Check out the yellow arrows going from blue team towards red team. This means that this is optional pressure that they could apply against the enemy red team. Now we're going to look at some options for what the mid laners, well, not the mid laners, but the 4 people grouped in mid can do from blue side using this extra pressure that's being created in the bottom lane. The first option for blue team is going to avert the pressure that they could have placed on the enemy mid lane, and they're going to go looking towards Baron. Now, oftentimes this is more of a bait. They're trying to catch the red team overextending to stop them from doing Baron, but sometimes you can get it for free because the enemy team is too scared to do it. Oftentimes, to pull this one off, you're going to want to have a pink ward and some red trinkets to help you clear the enemy vision, just in case they have some. Blue team's second option is to have their 4-man rotate through the top jungle and head at that top tower. This is going to cause red team to split up at the furthest points while still in their base, meaning it'll be harder for them to defend both at one time. Now, because blue team took the initiative to create pressure first, they have more pressure on the map, even though the lanes were a pretty even matchup for most of the time. But in this position, you have to be careful. Like a tire, there's a certain amount of pressure you need to put in it. Sometimes if you put too much air in a tire, it's going to pop, causing catastrophic events, and it's going to backfire hugely. So make sure that when you're applying pressure, you don't take any unnecessary risk. Being able to apply pressure will make the enemy team crumble. Don't try to force it. The reason why you can't force it too much is because the pressure is going to backfire huge. Check out bottom lane. Because bottom lane gets greedy, the blue team's bottom lane ends up dying, leaving it in a 4v5. Because it's 4v4 top, blue keeps their pressure there. However, because it's a 1v0 bottom, red gets to shove bottom lane all the way, creating huge pressure. Remember what we talked about with those bottom inhibitors? Those are the most important. Now it's giving an opportunity for red team to put pressure on Baron. So now that we've seen a look at what happens if bottom lane crumbles under their own pressure, let's take a look at what happens if the 4v4 crumbles under their own pressure, which happens to have a lot worse consequences. Because the 4v4 lost probably 1 to 2 people, they probably only have 1 to 2 people left standing. Now, with 4 red members right by Baron, they're going to be able to secure it really easily, while their last member defends the 1v1 in bottom lane. Alright guys, now this is going to be a weird note to end the video on, but it's because I need to explain some things to you guys. Now, there's a saying that's like, feed a man a fish and you feed him for a day, and teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Now this concept is also true in a way for League of Legends. With me going over basics, it almost took 30 minutes for me to go over everything. Now, I could go over every single possibility in League of Legends, but that would take me weeks. Honestly, weeks. Now, the great thing about League of Legends is that you don't need to understand every single possible combination. You only need to understand the overall variations. So what I tried to do in this video was explain the different possibilities, such as who can split push, can my team split push, what inhibitors are the best to get. Now it's up to you as summoners to go into the game and learn how to apply these for yourself. Now another thing I'd like to say is that some of these concepts can be a little bit confusing. So If you have any extra questions, you can always message me on Twitch at LOLArmon for my Twitch name, and I'll be trying to set up a stream schedule. My streaming is going to try and attempt to be almost as informative as Skara or Wings of Death, and I'm currently Diamond 3, although I was Diamond 1 in Season 3. Now, I had to take a 4-month break from League because I had unreliable internet, but I'm back and climbing quickly. Another thing you can do is you can email me at leaguementor@gmail.com. Now, that's my YouTube email, and if you email me there, I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. Now, if I find a question that's asked a lot, and I think it's worth making a video over, or a quick 5-minute vlog over, I'll definitely make sure to do that. So, lastly, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. I know that these videos aren't high-quality editing, but I try and put as much information as I can into them to help you guys learn how to play League of Legends better and enjoy your time playing. So, if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike and a comment explaining what you didn't like about the video. And if you think this video can help someone on your friends list or someone you know, please feel free to share it. Any little bit helps. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a good day.